68 years after the death of Earth's most prolific curse spirit, Ryumin Sukuna, a random monolithic-sized spaceship carrying nearly 50,000 aliens known as Samurians appear in the upper atmosphere, specifically above Nevada and the United States, seeking peace with Earth. On the spaceship, a horned Samurian asks a younger one why they are conducting diplomacy with Japan instead of the United States. From what they could tell, he assumed they were the strongest nation on the planet. The young Samurian does confirm this, however, he states that the US has delegated all authority for diplomatic missions with otherworldly beings to Japan. You see, and as we already know, the young alien has learned that Japan has humans with powers similar to theirs. Here on Earth though, they call them Jujutsu sorcerers. And I can't lie, I love to be back in this goated world. Also makes me question if they don't necessarily use curse energy or call it that, but maybe something relatively similar that works off emotion, kind of like it does on Earth. Anyways, flashing back 10 years to 2076, we find a 6-year-old Yuka Okkotsu spending time with her grandfather and our original MC, Yuta Okkotsu. Randomly, during the two hanging out, Yuta decided to gift her his ring. Yuka was initially reluctant, as the ring was his treasure. Knowing just how freaking amazing this ring can be though, Yuta explained that he only worried for Yuka due to her recklessness, so the ring would offer her some form of protection until she became a fully fledged Jujutsu practitioner. Stoked with that, Yuka vowed to work hard and become a Jujutsu sorcerer. I really love here how Yuta's head is still stitched on and everything. Dude could have completely continued his life if he wanted to, you know, swapping bodies and everything, kind of like Kenjaku did, but that isn't how he does things. God, imagine if Kenjaku makes a reappearance in this story like he has some kind of condition on his brain that brings him back after the death of Yuta. He definitely doesn't, but PTSD flashbacks right there. Anyways, after 4 years passed, Yuta ends up passing away. Rest in peace to our big goat, he can finally actually go and see Rika now. At his funeral, Yuka reaffirmed her promise to her deceased grandfather. After it came to an end though, Yuka's mother took her aside and ordered her to give the ring to her brother, Tsurugi Okkotsu, as it was a cursed object registered to the Gojo clan's warehouse, and therefore not something Yuta could just give away. Plus, according to her mother, she has no right to have it, and only Tsurugi is suited for it. When Yuka later confronted Tsurugi and demanded he return the ring, Tsurugi just told his sister to chill, since it wasn't even him who made the call in the first place. Furious over him not giving it back, Yuka attacks Tsurugi, but ends up getting off-screened pretty damn easily, I'd imagine. Remembering her mother's words later on, Yuka refused to let them rule over her and began training in hopes of growing stronger and one day reclaiming the ring. Elsewhere, in a random part of Japan, a man is seen playing a retro shooting game with a boy inside of a warehouse. Weirdly, there just happens to be a bunch of talismans covering the entire expanse of it. The child complains about his parents restricting his screen time, while being envious of his friends who are allowed to jam out all night. As the boy dies in the game, the man wonders if the contents of the video game are suitable for boys of his age. The boy dismisses his concerns though, claiming that it is normal to die in a game. The man then ominously guesses that he wouldn't complain if it happened to him for real then. Flashing away to somewhere else in Kyoto, Usami, the tall dude in a suit here, surely he's gotta be like a Higuruma descendant. Bro holds himself like a lawyer, but you know, don't know what he actually does yet. Either way, he informs a now 17-year-old Tsurugi and a 16-year-old Yuka about the recent cases of Japanese citizens being abducted and used as energy sources. He assigns Tsurugi, Yuka, and a mysterious third person to investigate the disappearances that have been occurring in Kyoto. Due to how the police can't track them down, Jujutsu High suspects that some sorcerers may be involved. When Yuka asks who the random person is, a young man appears from behind Usami and introduces himself as Maru Val von Yelvori, or just Maru for short. Yuka immediately finds it odd that they've teamed up with a sorcerer from another country, mainly for the fact that curse energy is a sort of emotional energy tied to the Japanese people. So there are exceptions, but sorcerers are usually born in Japan. Usami elaborates that it's also the reason Japanese people sell for a higher price in the human trafficking world. Tsurugi can't get over how little Maru actually knows about all of this right here, and feels too anxious about going on a mission with him. His sister tries to remind him about how they ain't even fighting curse users in the first place, still he insists that they never know what could happen. Maru, who honestly doesn't have a clue about anything at all, dance around the arguing siblings while begging for some form of breakdown on why they call them curse users and not Jujutsu sorcerers. In unison, they both turn and scream at him that curse users are bad jujutsu sorcerers, and if he doesn't shut it already, then they'll leave his ass behind. Usami tries backing up the newbie on how he's like just a visiting official, representing a state party to see what Japanese sorcerers are like. This rings a bell in Yuka's mind as she remembers how he'd mentioned there would be inspectors after the security treaty was signed. Immediately hitting monologue mode himself, Maru knows he needs to gauge how similar their powers are and if they can really coexist with them, the Samurians. Hitting full Neek mode, Maru tries to tell the others not to rely on him since he has strict orders from the higher-ups not to interfere. Feeling like he's already in the freaking way though, the siblings just boost off, throwing him a few disses as they both leave him in the dust. After giving up on looking for the Okkotsus, Maru sits down and begins to sulk on that same, or what looks like to me, the same riverside where Yuji found Junpei. A few moments later, Yuka returns and tells him to not cry since then they actually look like dicks for what they did. To make it up to the foreign dignitary, Yuka takes him out for some takoyaki that he finds delicious, so delicious that he starts freaking crying, something Yuka finds odd since you can get food like this anywhere in town. She even lets him know the food's better in places like Kyoto, which surprises him as bro doesn't think it could get much better. Sitting back alongside the river, the two have a friendly chat. Yuka explains the rivalry that started growing between her and Tsurugi, something that originated with the ring being suddenly given to her brother. Maru questions if her brother is a great sorcerer since he was given the ring first, but according to Yuka, they're pretty much the same, the only difference in them is the age. One thing is for sure though, he's an insanely hard worker, and anybody can tell when someone's constantly working out. She thinks he's doing all of this to beg for attention from the family, since in her eyes, all he wants is to keep the ring out of her grasp. Calming herself back down though, Yuka gets up and notes how it's not like he even has memories with Yuta, plus she's working her ass off too. Seeing her demeanor, Maru jumps up and drops the idea of completing this mission together to show everybody just how good she is. Plus, he's an inspector. If they do it together, it'll actually look like she completed the mission by herself. Yuka brings up that they're forbidden to work alone as a sorcerer. However, it's not like she said she wouldn't do it. Stoked that it looks like they're going to be heading out together, Maru reminds Yuka that he can't help at all here. Nobody will find out if he's gone with her as long as he doesn't end up using cursed energy. The duo then head out into the city in search of the perpetrator, but after what only seems like a few minutes, Maru collapses back onto the ground, unable to find anything. Telling Maru to get up, she jokes that of course it'll look like nothing to an amateur, before asking which way he wants to turn at the end of the road. Once reaching the end and turning right, Yuka asks him which way again. Giving her the signal to turn left, then head straight down the alley, a curious Maru asks what's up. Flicking him a piece of paper, Maru reads the exact same directions he already gave her, written down on that piece of paper. Confused, he throws it back at her while joking that it ain't a time for games. Getting his ass to shut up for a moment, Yuka elaborates that it's the road. It had physical gaze manipulation and a curse cast onto it. This allows the sorcerer to lead stray wanderers or curious kids down the path they've intended for them. Pretty much, if you follow this path that's laid out for you after you get lost, it activates a barrier technique trapping you inside. Realizing this is how the perpetrator is kidnapping kids, Maru tells Yuka that she's amazing and everyone will see soon enough. Something she brushes off though, as her brother then rolls onto the scene, having found the place just earlier. He clarifies with them that if they keep letting it guide them down the path, they'll eventually get caught themselves. Going to walk off, he tells them to wait up for 1 second as he just needs to grab his blade. Watching him nonchalantly walk off, Maru apologizes to Yuka. However, she just questions why he's letting it get to him so much. Turns out Maru actually has a brother as well, a younger twin. Sadly, they don't get along, even though he's tried patching it up with him a bunch of times. Yuka asks what ended up happening between them, and he admits that it was really nothing. His brother just finds him to be so cringe it annoys the hell out of him. Maru hates the fact that they can't understand each other, and the thought of it going on forever really saddens him. He'd hate for Yuka and Tsurugi to end up in a similar situation, so really wanted to try and help fix the whole ring situation. Giving him some pointers, Yuka thinks that maybe he should stop projecting how he thinks siblings should act just because of his own situation. Plus, most siblings end up arguing in one way or another, which I can definitely attest to too. I've got 2 younger brothers that definitely get on my nerves from time to time, but at the end of the day, they're definitely my best friends that I love. Not at that stage herself though, Yuka turns away from Maru and mutters that she really doesn't care about her brother as long as she gets Yuta's ring back. While this group discussion was going on, the 3 had ended up making their way to what they assume was where the path started. Pulling out some tape in anticipation to close the entranceway and make sure that, obviously no one else falls down this pathway here, he says that even if they don't block every path, it should still prevent the conditions for the barrier technique from being fulfilled, and that way no one else can get caught. Once finishing their taping, the group is utterly gobsmacked as this dumbass kid selling his life away just boasts it down the taped alley. They all quickly react, turning and running after the kid. However, it's too late. Out of the darkness, two large hands reach out and snatch the boy away before the others could grab him. Coming to an immediate stop as the hands vanish, Tsurugi can tell they're up against a top-tier curse user if they're able to work spatial transference into a barrier technique. Sheathing his blade now, he yells back to his sister that he's going in after the kid, so she needs to report back to Usami. She immediately refuses though, wanting to go in with him, but he shuts her down as he wants to prove to her he's the strongest. In the end though, they somewhat come to an agreement in trying to go together. However, as the hands reach out, they only snatch away Tsurugi. On top of that, it also only grabs him and not his curse energy infused blade. Yuka quickly figures out that the barrier is repelling anyone with too much cursed energy, hence how the blade didn't make it through. When it comes to Tsurugi, well, it's like Yuka says here, except Viz got the translation slightly wrong. It's not that her brother has no curse energy, he definitely is a special case for sure, in a similar way to Maki from way back in the day. He's a sorcerer with extremely low amounts of curse energy, so hence why he needs to wield a blade. Maru starts to freak out, thinking it's like when the hunter becomes the prey, but Yuki gets him to settle back down. In her eyes, they'll do what Tsurugi said before, and go and inform Usami about what's going on. A little concerned about just leaving him here though, Maru asks about just calling him on the phone instead, but is told he's in Tokyo. If there is a free sorcerer nearby, she's sure they'll swing by. Knowing this isn't right here, you can't just leave your brother to get cooked, Maru speaks up trying to tell her, but is immediately screamed down by Yuka. Standing on his own feet though, Maru screams back that if something does happen to Tsurugi, she'll regret it for the rest of her life. Plus, he might also have a change of heart someday, but if he dies now, that can never happen. Yuka, unable to get over how this dude just showed up and is now trying to tell her how to act, tells him to stop pushing his ideals on her. Unable to understand what's wrong with having ideals though, Maru thinks that if someone can't live up to his ideals, he's the only one that gets hurt, not them. He may even get humiliated or hurt, but if she's going to give up on her ideals, then she should probably do it after she's been hurt and humiliated herself. He hasn't given up on his big bro yet, and will be damned if she gives up on hers too. Lowering her head, Yuka says she won't save him, no. Instead, she's going to beat his freaking ass. Inside of that same talisman-filled room from earlier, the same man speaks to Tsurugi about the grid pattern of Kyoto's roads, something he has always found really compatible with his barrier technique. Speaking up, Tsurugi calls him a dumbass for deciding to set his kidnapping business up next to Jujutsu High. Not fazed though, the man admits that he's going to quit the trafficking business anyway. Since Tsurugi is a Jujutsu sorcerer, the man assumes he's heard about what's going on, something that confuses the young bloke since he really doesn't have a clue. Dropping a complete bomb though, the kidnapper states that aliens have come. A silence rings throughout the room until Tsurugi breaks it, accusing the dude of being an insane tinfoil hat wearing bozo. The kidnapper continues though that the Inspector Generals declared the extraterrestrial invasion as a special grade incident on par with that of Ryumen Sukuna from 86 years earlier. Ever since the Kyoto Paranormal Security Treaty was enacted, all diplomacy with aliens has been left up to Japan. That being said, he believes that since there are cultural barriers between them, the aliens will start a war and invade Earth. To the kidnapper, the diplomatic mission and coming war will truly expose Japan's colours to the world. 68 years earlier, the Culling Games occurred, prompting the signing of a treaty between Earth's greatest nations. Satoru Gojo and Yuji Itadori, our freaking goats, put a stop to the threat at the time. However, time has only gone on, and no one these days even comes close to comparing to them. Once the world finds out how weak sorcerers have become, his new, shady energy business will come to a quick conclusion. That's why his plan here is to make one last big sale and profit specifically from selling Tsurugi. Tsurugi though, with a smirk on his face, asks if he and the kid are a set, but is quickly told no as a garage door then begins to open. Behind the man, it's shown that he's already bagged and tagged a bunch of kids who are ready to be put up for adoption, or should I say auction. Jaded over his situation, Tsurugi calls him a pathetic adult who can't even put fries in the bag. Head-kicking the defenseless student, the kidnapper tells him to stop acting tough. He's in the old part of town now, a specific area that was left to rot from back in Yuji Itadori's days. He begs for him to scream for his life because no one will save him, when randomly and all of a sudden, the nearby door goes flying off its hinges, smashing into the kidnapper and pushing his ass to the floor. Quickly breaking free of his own restraints as Maru and Yuka run up next to him, Tsurugi goes to tell the kidnapper to give it up, when randomly, Yuka calls out to her brother and demands he fight her. Without even letting him answer though, she dives into a frontal assault, throwing a bunch of punches. However, Tsurugi easily manages to par them all off, then smacks her brother with an equal right. Resting on the ground now, Yuka starts to cry. She can't get over how strong her brother is. I love how when she's thinking about her bro here and how strong he is, he's training like Zoro does, which by the way, the series One Piece is canon in the universe, so he very well could have watched the series and started training like him. But it's just an idea. I wonder if we'll see any more homages like that throughout this little series here. Anyways, getting herself back up off the floor and on track here, Yuka screams at the man to give it up. Slapping her hands together, Yuka's fingers grow in size as she lunges forward using her savage jaw strike. Throwing his hands up, the kidnapper barely blocks the attack, still getting his wrist sliced in the process. Quickly bending down and touching one of his own talismans on the floor though, he transports himself directly behind Yuka. The kidnapper then strikes down on her with a random weapon he also picked up in that instance. Yuka, who managed to block the attack, picks up on this and notes how the room is filled with the same barrier technique he used for kidnappings. Getting pissed off himself, Tsurugi demands that he get given his katana. All of a sudden, the kidnapper is caught off guard by a random sound cutting through the room. The cursed Honeyagi, wielded by Tsurugi, uses the sparks generated from the scabbard and infuses them into the blade. Moving into his stance, Tsurugi activates the new shadow-style Bato sword drawing technique, sending out an extremely fast set of slashes that tear through all of the talismans in the room. From the kidnapper's left, Yuka then once again activates her savage jaw strike before closing in and hitting him with biting fist, a rotation-based move that launches the kidnapper across the room. With everything seemingly coming to a happy conclusion, Maru lets them know that the kids are perfectly fine. Still, Tsurugi thinks it's best that they don't touch them before an adult sorcerer arrives, which probably makes sense, they don't know what kind of spells over the kids or what kind of curse could be on the kids and whatnot. Sitting down next to his sister, Rugi admits that she's gotten way stronger, but because of that, he'll work even harder too, so that one day he can give the ring back to her. Flashing 10 years back into the past, we see that unlike his sister, Tsurugi's more prominent relationship was with his grandmother, Maki Okkotsu. She admitted that he was just like her, he naturally gets stronger through loss. Still, it's a double-edged sword, so she warns him to be careful and learn to leave things. One day, after stumbling inside, Rugi heard the discussion between Yuka and Yuta about the ring, and then after finding his grandmother outside, asked for one from her. Explaining how it's a protective ward to him, Maki lets him know that he doesn't need it because he's strong. Then, at age 11, his mother gave him the ring. He didn't understand why, but was told it was because he needed it the most. It was the Gojo clan's decision, and what he wanted was irrelevant. Unable to accept this, he ran through the woods, extremely hurt by the idea that he needs a charm for protection. Then and there, he vowed that one day he's going to make them say he doesn't need that ring. After all, he's Maki's grandson. He mentally apologizes to Yuka for what happened, but promises he'll only hang on to the ring for a little while longer. Back in reality, Yuka looks down on him, confused about what he could possibly mean by that, when all of a sudden, the kidnapper's voice echoes throughout the room. In his eyes, they are idiots, and all idiots should die. Black lines then shoot out from his body across the expanse of the room, causing both of the sorcerers to realize that the dude means to leave with the kids now. Slowly getting back to his knees, Bro says he's already got a buyer. Opening his third eye though, Maru catches everyone off guard as he stares directly into the eyes of the now confused kidnapper. Seconds later, the random dude just drops to the ground, unconscious, after being hit by a wave of whatever Maru's power is. Snapping their heads back around, both of the sorcerers remember how they've heard a rumor about aliens, and straight up question if Maru happens to be one. Well, what a cool little add into the Jujutsu universe here. If you do want me to cover this Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo on a weekly basis, Modulo on a weekly basis, just depending on chapter lengths and everything, then make sure to push this video to 3k likes just to show that you all want more content just like this. Plus, subscribe if you are new around here and want to keep up to date with a bunch of similar series. So happy to see that we are getting some more heat from Gege. It was pretty abrupt how Jujutsu Kaisen ended and everything, so getting this extra short series is a nice addition before season 3 starts to release. I can't wait to see more art from this Yuji Iwasaka. The paneling is great so far, and I'm sure with some input from Gege here and there, the entire series is going to be banging. The idea that Yuji became as strong as Gojo as well in the past and is hailed on his level is so freaking cool in my eyes. I love to see that Gojo's wish came true and that Yuji was probably surrounded by his friends and family when he passed on. I am kind of curious as to what happened with him, how old did Yuji live to, and I'd love to know your thoughts on all of it down below as well. What do you all think about Jujutsu Kaisen 100 years in the future? The series does kind of remind me a little bit of Demon Slayer's final chapter and how they skipped way ahead in the future a few generations and you saw like what the kids looked like and whatnot. I really love that idea. But hey, at the end of the day, it's been your professional degenerate Diavolo and I will see you all in a bit. Bye.